Good evening. Jeremy Corbyn has laid the foundations of Labour's election campaign with a relentless attack on greedy bankers, tax cheats and employers who rip off their workers. The party's formal campaign launch in Trafford, Mr Corbyn presented Labour as the anti-establishment choice. But he was also accused of throwing Labour's Brexit policy into confusion by repeatedly refusing to confirm that Britain would be leaving the EU if Labour won the election. Mr Corbyn was speaking to our political editor, Laura Kunsberg, who reports now on the day's events.
Jeremy Corbyn!
A showbiz introduction. Labour's had more drama in 18 months than some parties do in a decade. But he is on the main stage now. So are you ready for his lines?
The economy is still rigged in favour of the rich and powerful. When Labour wins, there'll be a reckoning for those who've thought they could get away with asset stripping our industry, crashing our economy through their greed and ripping off workers and consumers.
A dramatic call in front of his shiny new battle bus. But since he's been in charge, Labour has gone backwards.
We have 4 weeks to ruin their party. We have 4 weeks to have a chance to take our wealth back. We must seize that chance today and every day until June the 8th.
He's brought multitudes of new members. But what about the mainstream?
You said rather dramatically there will be a reckoning if you become Prime Minister. Now, a reckoning doesn't sound like a few people at the very top paying a little bit more. It sounds like something rather more radical.
What it is,
much higher taxes for business.
It's a reckoning in our society that very big business should pay more in tax. Corporation tax should not be lowered, as the Conservatives proposed to give away more than 60 billion in tax cuts over the next 4 years.
So how much more would you put
on? Well, you'll have to wait for the manifesto for the details. You expected that answer, I know.
When you use language like promising a reckoning, talking about people taking back their wealth, to some voters, to some of our viewers, that sounds like the politics of envy.
Not at all, not at all. What I'm saying is that we all benefit when we all do better. We are a very rich country, but unfortunately the riches are not very fairly spread around the place, and the levels of inequality are getting worse. We need to understand the anger that many people feel in this country. 6 million earning less than the living wage, 1 million on 0 hours contracts, many on short-term jobs and short-term working in communities that have seen precious little investment for 30 years. Their anger is palpable and real.
And are you angry?
Yes. I do get angry about poverty, I get angry about injustice, I get angry about inequality.
Why do you believe that you can now win a general election from the left? Because the evidence so far under your leadership is that the kind of things that you've been saying, which are
all
down
the evidence
like a storm
is
in a room like this, but the evidence is in the wider electorate that the Labour Party has been going backwards.
All the evidence is, ask people the question on wages, ask people the question on housing, ask people the question on education, ask people the question on social care, ask them all those questions, all of which are framed in our policies, and you find people saying, yeah, I agree with that.
That's what he wants to take on the road, with big promises to come. Voters in Salford Sunshine were curious.
I don't know if he is necessarily the individual, but certainly where he's coming from, I think really it resonates with so many people sort of up here and in other parts of the country.
There's that many people in Labour Party hate him. Oh, I won't say hate him, but can't get on with him. I don't know, I don't think he's got much of a chance.
But it's been hard for Labour to settle on a position on leaving the EU. The leader wants to draw a line.
This election isn't about Brexit itself. That issue has been settled. The question now is what sort of Brexit do we want? And what sort of country do we want Britain to be after that?
His aides are adamant settled means settled. A Labour government would leave. But when I asked him several times, the answer was not quite so clear.
Does that mean if you're Prime Minister, come hell or high water, whatever the deal on the table, we will be leaving the European Union?
Look, there was a clear vote at the referendum a year ago, but there is now the negotiations which have already begun.
That's not quite my question. My question is, if you're Prime Minister, we will leave come hell or high water, whatever is on the table at the end of the negotiations.
We win the election, we'll get a good deal with Europe.
Can you categorically say that we would definitely leave? Because if you won't, there is a chink of a possibility that things could change and we might end up looking differently at our options.
The danger is of the approach the Conservatives are taking in their megaphone diplomacy with Europe. Our view is you have to talk to them, negotiate with them, and recognise there is actually quite a lot of common interest, particularly in manufacturing industry. That is the process we're following.
But for all the leaders in this merry dance, every word, every move does matter. Laura Kunsberg, BBC News, Trafford.